Welcome to the second edition of Brennen's Budget Builds. For this project, I began by searching for the next leap in audio technology. I was surprised to find that it might have already been invented over 50 years ago. To give proper background on this project, we must go back to when Mangneplanar speakers were first introduced.
Looking to the future.
Hi, I'm Smith Laser at Audio Labs, and this is the Magnepan speaker, also at Audio Labs. It doesn't look like a speaker, and it doesn't sound like a speaker. It sounds like you're there. Magnepan designed these speakers to be totally unique and different than any other kind of speaker, but my telling you about it doesn't give you any idea how it sounds. So come on down to Audio Labs and listen to the Magnepan.
But just like a new TV, how do manufacturers go about advertising a brand new upgrade in tech when you're limited by the old model's capabilities?
With special speakers that surround you with music.
I don't understand.
What's going on?
I don't understand.
I know, but there's an old saying. The more things change, the more they stay the same. In this weird and wonderful world of tomorrow, we'll still be doing the same things, differently.
The traditional speaker reproduces a variety of sounds by pushing air at a very fast rate. Mangneplanar speakers still use a lot of the same mechanisms to push the surface. The difference is that Mangneplanar uses a long rectangular cut of Mylar, a strong plastic sheet stretched incredibly tight as a surface for vibrations to be produced. For the Mylar to move fast enough to make sound, it uses a wire glued to one side and a magnet held close to the other. An electrical current attracts the wire just long enough for it to bounce back like a trampoline. But because the diaphragm surface is so large and the sound is omniprojecting, the reproduction of sound wave is far more accurate to the source recording. Many people say listening to Mangneplanar speakers is like swimming in sound. I learned that Magnepan is still building speakers by hand. They are just way out of my affordability range, so I began to search for a budget option. I found that the ones from the 70s tend to get damaged over time. The glue will get debonded or the wire will rust away, so it is normal to see an old pair of Magnepan sell for cheap, since the repair process is not easy. But I took this as a challenge. There were a few forums on rebuilding Magnepan speakers, but no real accessible instructions for someone who is just getting into the rebuild and repair hobby. So began my project and documentation. I found myself a pair of Magnepans for $100 and plugged them in right away, hoping that I lucked out on a working pair. Unfortunately, they sounded like junk. My next step was to order a repair kit from the company. Be aware they only supply you with the hard-to-find parts. Within a few weeks, I received 2 gauges of wire, a few types of glue, some spare hardware, solder, and some mildly helpful instructions. In addition, you will need gloves, 2 bags of cotton balls, and a lot more acetone than this. I learned that using a spray bottle for the acetone helps keep the evaporation problem under control while you're scrubbing. Adding to the list will be wire strippers and a can of 3M Super 77. I was told the Super 77 was the safest to use on the Mylar, but I'm no expert. Last, you'll need a staple gun with shallow staples. To start, pull the sock off the speaker. Just remove all the screws you see and pull out the staples at the bottom. This is your first test of patience. If this is too stressful, it won't get better. Once it is open, you can see how the wire has turned brown and green. This is an indicator of moisture damage, which would explain the bad sound I was getting. Before beginning the cleaning process, take a few pictures of the wiring. Not all models are the same, so having a reference photo is important. Begin by carefully scrubbing the glue off the Mylar. There is no fix if the Mylar breaks, so the trick is to go slow and steady. But if you mess up like I did and puncture the Mylar slightly, it may still be salvageable. Put a piece of clear packing tape over the wound. At least that was the official advice I received from that grumpy man at the Magnepan office. Now that I have it cleaned, you can see how the speaker was built. On the other side is a metal grill that acts as a structure for holding the long line of magnets. The Mylar is stretched over the magnets but isn't touching. Now for the real test of patience. Use the Super 77 spray glue to initially place the wire where you want it. It needs to be as straight as possible on the Mylar, spacing it on either side of the magnets. After spray tacking down one line, go back around one more time. It should be one long loop running around it twice. After placing the wires, go back and use the kit's 3M glue to seal the wires tight. They recommend at least 2 coats, but I just finished the can, which was about 3.5 coats. Now, onto the wiring. This is where the pictures come in handy. For my speakers, I drew out a diagram to explain what's going on. The small high-end wire comes in the positive terminal and travels into a large white crossover. The wire then gets placed on the Mylar. The end will go directly to the negative output. The mid-range wire starts at the positive terminal also and runs to a coil. From this coil, it is glued to the Mylar. From the Mylar, it runs directly to the negative output. As always, it's easier said than done. Always test before piecing things back together. When putting the sock back on, you're going to have to put all those staples back in, and you really want to be sure it works first. I unfortunately learned this the hard way. After assembly, I chose to do a quick paint touch-up on the base of both speakers. For the last few weeks, I've been avoiding editing this project. If I had to guess, I spent close to 40 hours on camera doing this rebuild. The total cost was somewhere between $250 and $300, including supplies. But despite the effort, it was worth it in the end. There really is no way to describe how amazing Mangneplanar speakers sound. Hopefully, we will see more Magnepan in the future. Thank you to everyone who supported me for my last video. The switch featured in the video was gifted to my cousin, who is very much in need of a gaming upgrade. I have a larger project in the works for the next video, which I believe is going to be more interesting. So please subscribe if you like what I'm doing, or comment how I could be doing better. Thanks.